here, it really works best in a context where people have shared context, where we're all kind of part of the same organization. So we're going to have to pretend a bit today to kind of get
Or
into
is
it.
there anybody here? Any little groupings here that are from the same?
Yeah. We'll definitely
Ah,
get to that because we want to have people who are from similar teams if that happened today. Are there any who came with a friend from their org or community? Maybe just raise your hand or hit a reaction button. I don't see any. I don't see any. Which is what I would thought would might be the case here too. It's kind of hard to come alone to a thing, right? Let alone bring somebody else with you. So that's totally cool because we've got for the second part we're going to hang out in wise crowds together and jam on decision making. And because we have such a nice large group of folks who don't have that shared context, we could even create two separate wise crowd spaces, Susan. We could be emergent. We'll be emergent about it. Um, but before we get there, we're going to play with the tool itself. So the tool itself, like I was saying, uh, really designed for folks that have a shared context because it's about deciding how to decide. It's about helping a group of folks decide how the heck they're going to decide. Um, and a lot of times we either skip that part or it's just kind of implicitly operating behind the scenes. And so this is a simple mapping exercise in a Miro space that you can use and take to your team or take to your clients that you're working with or wherever you're working with a group that has a shared context that needs to decide how to decide. Another way to think about it is decision making hygiene. So, kind of cleaning up how we're making our decisions and getting clearer together about an agreement we could make about how we make our decisions. So, that's going to be the first bit. And then the second bit, Jeremy's super excited, is is uh is a wise crowd space. And we're gonna probably just lean on chat to percolate up some interesting challenges that people are navigating right now. And then we'll use that to um uh, uh give and get support from one another around this topic, which I feel, and I'd love to hear your voice too, Susan, on this, like in this little preamble part. I think the main, meaning behind these sorts of tools is we're really helping our fellow humans see that we are actually capable of making decisions collectively and working with hierarchy in really human adult to adult ways. Like that it's possible, but we need a bit of structure to get into that. And
mm.
that's what this tool is designed for.
Yeah, and I love this tool because it can be used by people individually if one of their developmental edges is really wanting to make better decisions. So let's say, for example, that there is some level of explicitness in the decision mandates that sit within your role. But you want to be a little bit more thoughtful and mindful about how you might get advice, how you might form proposals, how you might ripen ideas. And, you know, what I see mostly in organizations is not a unwillingness to practice with different decision making methodologies, but to, I don't know, there seems to always be this block of, putting your hand up and say, this decision is my mandate. Now, the way that I make that decision, I can choose to make that inclusive, participatory, whatever. But when there's subterfuge or unclarity around where decision mandates sit, that's when things get confused and frustrating sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, this comes from years of experience working with another very similar, like this is an iteration on an older tool from Samantha Slade. And I think Samantha Slade got that tool from kind of a risk management space from the 80s and 90s that was also using a similar axis to think about not decisions, but maybe just risks, I think. So we've kind of, over the years, we've been bringing in the tool that Samantha Slade put in her lovely book, Going Horizontal. And we were trying to use it in settings, but would find sometimes didn't quite land, or there was something with the axes that didn't quite land for folks. And so Ellen and Denaro and I, particularly in one client space that we've been working in for the last year and a half or so, we said, okay, let's figure out what what these axes are. So I'll share the link here in the Miro to the board space. You can all poke around in there. And so we took some time to really think through. I was kind of thinking through the sequence of steps and the timing and how this could be used to satisfy different needs, because it works for helping with accountability. It also works with helping a group identify where they need to be meeting synchronously and where they could maybe be meeting asynchronously or using Slack and these sorts of tools more so. So there's kind of three flavors that you can take to it. And today we're just focusing on decision making, which I think is a fairly important one for organizations and teams that are trying to do something different in how they self-organize and how they self-govern. So how are folks doing with that Miro link? Are folks finding their way in? Okay. Any challenges? No. Okay, cool. Okay. So that's the Miro space that we're going to be playing in today. And then who here is in the liberating structures community or tied into that at all in any way? Jeremy, yeah. Susan and I.
I
Yeah,
saw
so
Diego's hand too.
yeah, Diego, yeah, cool. So we built this and then we said, okay, let's put it into the liberating structures in development Trello board. And I'll see, yeah, I think I have that here. I have a link to that Trello board here. You can check that out. Liberating structures are the best way I would describe it in 5 seconds would be they're structures that liberate a group. So they distribute participation and control in a slow clap from Sherry. So there's structures that you can bring to help distribute participation and control in a group of any size, really. And so there's a number that have been developed by Keith and Henri, and they put them together into this lovely book, The Surprising Power of Liberating Structures, over 10 years ago now. Crazy. And then there's this lovely community that's sprung up around it, and folks are continuing to develop structures and test, like, is this a liberating structure or is it not? We're not going to worry too much about that today. I personally don't think this is necessarily a liberating structure for various reasons, but I won't get into that. But it is a structure that distributes participation and control over how we how we decide uh, how we decide how to decide, as I said before. So now that you're in that Miro space, and that you also have that, like, that document you can look at later, that goes through the whole kind of different directions you can go in this. And today, we're going to focus less on like how it works, and we're just going to try it. So this is a bit of an experimental thing too. I haven't done it in a group of folks who don't have a shared context before, but I have used liberating structures that require or that really sing with that shared context, using what we're about to do right now. So Susan, without further ado, I don't want to talk too much about how it works until we're in it. You know what I mean? I just want to get us imagining first, as
Go,
if we're
go.
the, okay. Okay, cool. Okay. So let's ground ourselves a bit here first. Let's find yourself comfortable in your seat, or if you're standing, um ground your feet into the ground, and just you can close your eyes for a minute here, or for a few minutes, because I'm going to read something to you to kind of help you imagine. um Close your eyes and just notice the space of your body right now that you're in. So notice that feeling of gravity that might be holding you in your seat, and pulling your sit bones down, or if you're standing, your feet down into the ground. Notice above you, almost as if there's a thread coming from the top of your head, just kind of gently pulling you, creating that length, a bit of length. Noticing that dimension of length in you. Breathing naturally as you go. Or slowing your breathing if you choose to. Noticing everything that's behind you. You might be sitting in a chair, feel the back of the chair behind you. This dimension that's behind you. Notice the dimension that's in front of you. Just feel your body's front. Your closed eyes. And then notice your shoulders off to your side. This dimension that goes off to your side here, from your left and your right. And then the dimension at the very center of you. Could be in your pelvic floor, it could be in your chest. You can locate this feeling of centeredness. And keep your eyes closed while we bring this whole kind of embodied feeling that we're having into this imagined place. And take a deep breath. And as you breathe in, feel yourself grounding in this space. And as you breathe out, let your thoughts settle. Imagine stepping into a dimly lit world, a world where the brightest flames are often those that burn unnoticed, where change is ignited not by the spotlight, but by quiet sparks shared in the shadows. You who are all gathered here today are not ordinary. You are part of something greater, an ancient and invisible guild known as the Unlit Candles. Together, you carry a unique responsibility to sustain and guide the systems of the world, to facilitate and lead the people within them. Your work often unnoticed but indispensable. The unlit candles support other candles to burn, to illuminate paths, to bridge divides, to nurture seeds of change, and to keep the balance in moments of transition. Your tools are subtle, your influence often unrecognized. Perhaps you create clarity in the midst of confusion, or you sow quiet connections between people and ideas. Maybe you help groups release what no longer serves them, or you spark renewal in systems ready to evolve. Whatever your role, your contributions ripple outward, shaping the world in profound, hidden ways. As an unlit candle, you operate across scales. Your work might spark growth in one small corner while sustaining stability across a larger network. And together, the unlit candles form a network, connected by purpose and intention, whose strength lies not just in your own individual practice, but in the way you combine yours with others to guide and sustain the systems you touch. And only when gathered together amongst ourselves do we light our candles. And now you may all open your eyes and you can hold your thumb up. This is your candle. And we all say, candles alight. Candles alight.
Candles alight.
Candles alight.
And
Candles
so begins
alight.
our gathering, the unlit candles. This is a rare moment for us, fellow candles. No longer are we so hidden, but we're revealing ourselves to one another here. And in this light, something new is going to begin. The air, I feel, is almost shimmering with possibility right now. And it's time for us to form something lasting, a new organization born from our shared values and deep knowing. What shall it be called? How will it make decisions? What structures will honor our autonomy and interconnectedness? What kind of rhythms of gathering do we need to have? Reflection, action that's going to sustain our work. Who will be welcomed in? Who's to be a member? And how will belonging be known? These are just some questions that we have to sort out today, fellow candles. And these questions flicker between us, waiting to be shaped into form. So today is not just a meeting. Today, we need to found something. We need to begin to articulate some crunchy things about our organization. It's a chance to turn our quiet influence into collective power. The wax is warm, fellow candles, and the wicks are ready. Let us build together. Let us build together. So we are going to build at first by thinking about these things that we need to do to found this organization. We're going to use this decision and accountability map that we have in the Miro. So let's go take a look at that. And I'm going to share the screen here so that I can help navigate people to it and articulate some things and have that be on the record. Okay. Oh, I see the visiting visionary has arrived as well. It's in the Miro space with us. Lovely. Okay. Okay. So there's a few things that we need to sort out here. We need to kind of articulate like the chunks of work that we need to be putting together to begin forming this Unlit Candles organization. And any decisions that might be alive in relationship to that we feel we need to make soon. And so in this mapping space, you can see we have two axes. We have an axis that has impact listed, high and low. And then we have another axis which shows context or knowledge. So either it's widely distributed, like as unlit candles, we all know the secret oath, so on and so forth, right? And then over on the other side, there's some context and knowledge that's concentrated in just a few people. And you'll notice also these yellow kind of areas here: advice process, consent, temperature check, do it, autocratic or rule-based decisions. These are different ways of deciding how to get work done, what priorities to follow, so on and so forth. And so what we need to do today, folks, is look at the work that we gotta start doing together. We're gonna kind of go into breakout groups to begin articulating that. And then when we all come back together, we're gonna map it onto this space. And I'll tell you when we get to that step, what these different types of decision making mean, give you a bit more context about that. But right now, all we need to think about is when we're in our breakouts is what is a priority for us to focus on as we found this organization of unlit candles? What kind of work is involved in that? What kind of decisions are involved in that? Does that make sense, fellow candles?
We have some examples, please, Candlemaster.
Yeah. You know, I mean, we could start out with something like meeting rhythm. Could start out with shared purpose. Um, there's given our oath, there's probably something around kind of tending to our policy handbook. There might like things like this. I don't know. I'm just spitballing ideas for things that we will need as an organization. Now that we're kind of coming together out of the shadows and the woodwork, we need to kind of articulate this. Does that help, Susan?
Thank you. I think I'm going to call you Candelabra instead.
Okay. I'll take it. I'll take it. Any other clarifying questions from folks? Oh, sorry, from candles? Cindy, I see you chatting, but I don't hear you.
Nope, still can't hear you. And you don't look like you're on mute. How odd.
Yeah. You could also put it in chat if that's helpful. There we go. While Cindy's getting set up, any other questions, uncertainties, confusions?
If you'd like me to
Yeah.
organize the breakout, Stefan, how many per room?
That would be great. Well, let's we have 4 groups for stickies, so let's have 4 groups. So however many folks. And Melissa, I saw you unmute. You had something?
Yeah, I'm just a little confused. So we're going to go into our small groups and then write on yellow stickies some policy or thing we need as a founding document, founding artifact.
So our purpose today is to begin to found this organization of unlit
Okay.
candle. Yeah. So you can use the yellow stickies uh, to think about things that like accountabilities, pieces of work that we need to be doing. And the red stickies can be used to think about any decisions that you think are important.
Okay. So we're like, what kind of artifact here? Okay. Great. Thank you. Like
And
a
how long?
personnel policy or a,
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
okay.
we're just playing. So whatever you want to
Yep.
come up. Yeah.
How long in the room, Steph?
Let's give folks 10 minutes so that they can chat and then start building.
Nice one. We ready to go?
Folks ready? Yeah. Okay. All right. Hello, hello, welcome back. See a couple of groups who've managed to get some things in. I was checking in on group 1 and 2. Still needed to check in on group 4. Do we need a few more minutes? maybe 3 more minutes. And any questions that folks have, because when I was in group 2, there was a bit of uncertainty.
How much
Any-
mapping did you want us to do? 10
No
minutes went
mapping yet.
fast.
We're gonna do the mapping together.
Okay.
Yeah. Just listing things. Yeah, would that help? Like 2 more minutes in breakout? And remember, we're just pretending like we're starting an organization as these unlit candles. Somebody put in chat, like, why don't we do something simple like a garden or something like this? It could even be that. It could be like, okay, we want to, like, the unlit candles are going to organize a garden space as part of this initiative that we're coming together for. The main thing is we're just trying to think about what are the pieces of work involved in that. So that's the yellow stickies. So any accountabilities, things like this. And then the red stickies are what are some important decisions that we feel we need to make as part of founding this candles burn bright organization or whatever it's called. That's a decision there, for instance, right? Like, how do we name this? What's the name of this organization, right? So does that help for folks?
How much longer, Steph? 3, 5?
Let's go
2,
3 more minutes. 3 more minutes, because really it's just to kind of get some ideas, and then we're going to play with the board when we're all together.
Nice.
Hello, welcome back. Okay. Didn't see too much more get added in group 2 and group 4, but that's okay. We can kind of see what others have put and learn by doing in that fashion. Let's begin to map. So one of the things that I'm going to direct your attention to is to the right of the board, we have another space that has a few diagrams in it. And I think this will be a helpful place to navigate yourself to in the Miro board. I'll also share my screen here so that it's in the recording. And before we start pulling in some of these stickies, we're going to be just getting a sense of what are these different decision-making modalities that we're talking about here. So I'll share my screen here. There we go. Okay. So as you can see here, we've got a much more colorful axis. This was basically after we realized these different decision-making methods, they actually kind of overlap in interesting ways. So this diagram is really meant to illustrate that quality, right? That you could be using an advice process, and it can kind of live in the territory of where we have it in the other board, which just has it in the upper right quadrant, right? But what are these things? What are these different methods of making decision? So I'm going to start first with consent. And I just have a little sticky here that to me is like the simplest way to putting it, right? This is making a decision that involves and impacts everyone. It has a wider impact. And the whole method, there's a sequence that you can go through. And we have a session coming up at the Networks Festival, I think in a few weeks, right, Susan? With Nanad and David.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're gonna do a live generative decision-making process, which is a consent based decision-making process. And with consent, it's different from consensus. With consent, we're trying to make a decision that we can all tolerate rather than a decision that we can all prefer, right? With consensus, it's often in that realm of preference. What do we all prefer? Let's all secure agreement around this thing. And so it can take much longer to get to that decision. We have another diagram at the bottom right of this that has decision-making styles. So you can see consensus, unanimity. In that speed column, it's quite slow. So with consent, we're trying to go for something a little bit faster. And so we're looking for something that we can all tolerate, that we can all live with. And the common phrase is something that's good enough for now, safe enough to try. And I won't go too much into the detail about the GDM method because that's a whole other thing. Susan, would you want to add anything else to consent?
No, I like, I'm just sensing in my body when you're sharing it, I'm experiencing like, okay, well, I can tolerate that. I think the like the concept and the vibe behind that for me is how can we how might or why might we choose to create a proposal based culture where anybody with a who can see a potential way through or something to do and has the will and the energy to make it real can create the conditions for enough trust. Well, if there's enough trust in the environment for it not to be perfect,
Yes.
for us not to fall into the, I guess, green methodology of sitting around in a circle until absolutely everybody agrees on every little jot and tittle of the proposal. How we
Mhm.
can start to both build this proposal based agency full culture and trust each other enough. As long as we can collectively decide that this isn't going to harm us, it's good enough for now. It's safe enough to try.
I love that. What you just described there is basically, it's like why you would use that method, right?
Correct.
You're trying to unleash proposal making capacity in the organization. So with the consensus model, it's like, oh, I don't know if I want to, I don't want to bring something forward into that. With consent, it's like, no, it's less friction, less barriers to bringing proposals forward. And the
That's right.
mechanisms involved in it are there to help improve the proposals, not to stop them in their tracks or block them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Susan. The advice process on the other side, where the impact could be quite high. There's maybe context and knowledge is a bit more concentrated in a handful of people. This is more where we're trying to empower those people with decision-making rights to make it so, make that decision happen. But the expectation here is that you're going to get input and advice from key folks before you make that decision. So you're going to try to always, like, I started with consent because of that proposal piece, and I love what you said, Susan, because this proposal-based culture, we're making proposals and we're trying to get other fingerprints on the proposals to improve them, to make them better, not because we're worried we're going to get shut down, but we actually want to get the feedback from others in the team who have ideas about how to make that proposal better. And so the advice process is really kind of basically making that more explicit. You see this other area here too, the red line or the role reserved space. This is more like often we find this in settings where we're working with founder teams or organizations that were hierarchical before, but now are trying to transform into something else. We're chatting with the leaders in that organization about what decision making rights they still want to hold, in their organization as we, move through this transformation process. And these we call these red lines, or Susan, you called it that, and it's just kind of stuck in how we describe this. What else would you add to these two, Susan?
Well, I love advice process because it kind of bleeds into the session we're hosting next week on complexity, right? The knowledge that there are some things and some decisions that do require a level of subject matter expertise that you might not have. Um, and it's this double-edged thing between ensuring that you're getting advice from people who have done it before or have a specific expertise, but also really sensing into the impact that your decisions might have on the people who will be impacted by them. And having those conversations often and early so that you can, again, give yourself everything that you need to feel like the proposal is ripe enough. But the other important thing in the advice process is that it's going to be your decision to make. So, advice process is a way of being that impacts not only the proposal maker, but the advice givers, and kind of mutualizing the respect in that process that, if I ask somebody for advice, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to take the advice. So yeah, it's about ripening your own proposal by just hearing from the people who have more knowledge or experience in you, or more subject matter expertise, and those that will be impacted. And you know, uh, again, I really think about this a lot in conjunction with organizations where roles are explicit. And even if you have a decision mandate within your particular role, it's always good practice to use the advice process.
I love that. Um, the next space here, autocratic or role based, making this decision as part of your role. So a lot of times when we decide how to decide, we're also working in accountabilities and beginning to shape and define those accountabilities. Now, some schools of thought, holacracy, things like this, they're really like, you gotta crystallize those, and that's got to be really clear. And there's a lot of effort and work that goes into making those explicit, right? That's because we're trying to kind of distribute decision making rights in the organization and kind of help it self-organize and become more nimble as a result, so that you're not having to go and seek permission. Rather, you can just take initiative, right? Um, it's kind of a wicked question, though. How much time are you going to spend defining those roles in complex adaptive environments, right? So what we've found this tool can be helpful for is that, okay, we can just get a snapshot of accountabilities that are important, and places where those decision rights exist, but we don't need to spend a tremendous amount of time overly defining them, and kind of remain, like, get that good enough uh, articulation of what the role is responsible for making a decision around, and then start with that, but don't spend too much more time, because it might change again if your environment is changing and you need to adapt how your team is approaching it. So the role-based one is an interesting one. There's different, like, opinions about how much time to spend defining those roles, and defining the decision rights in the roles. And then I'll say the other one here is pretty straightforward. It's like, I don't know, sending a Slack message, something. It's just the day-to-day things that are happening. And this temperature check area here, I think, is also really key too. This is where, you have an idea, but you're not quite sure how it might land in the team or the organization. You want to just go and test it. And so you maybe have a Slack message before you begin forming a proposal or forming an initiative, or you check in with a few people when you're in a call with them about an idea you have, see how it lands. Does that make sense? What else would I need to consider in it? These sorts of things. So that's the temperature check, or at least how I've experienced it. Susan, do you want to add anything else to these other few
No, I
spaces?
think I think there's all, and so much of this, it's about ripening. Like, is it the
Yeah.
right time? Are we the right people? Is this the correct need? And the more input that you can get into sensing that, the almost always the better the proposal is going to be. Um, and Rachel, just explicitly specifically coming back to your question, is that build this, what we're proposing here moves beyond sort of the tactical mechanistic elements of this, more towards this culture of how we want to decide together. And yeah, I might get Steph's advice on something, but I might not, I might decide because I have more context, or because I've had alternative opinions that I don't take his advice. And it's up to me to ensure that Steph knows that, yeah, I'm asking for your advice, but it might not be integrated into the proposal. And that needs to be a cultural norm that has been established within us as a team or within us as a group of people that are working on something together. I think it does get a little bit confusing, the difference between role-based and autocratic. For me, autocratic is, everything that's kind of below that horizontal line really is indicating that it's one person's decision and that a participatory process probably isn't necessary. And just want to come back to this, that the key to all of this is making it explicit as possible where the decision rights lie. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So,
Can I say
now,
something?
yes, yeah.
It seems, it seems in a way that this is a different way of looking at potentially at a leadership spectrum, actually, and so also if you think about it in terms of potentially of networks, for networks to create change, they would need to be more towards a transformational end of the spectrum, which in this case is on the left-hand side. It seems in the sort of consent and potentially a little bit into the advice process, but more consent based, really. Yeah, that's kind of that's what I'm doing in my head to understand it, to kind of think about what's the
I love
leadership
that.
spectrum, what's the leadership spectrum here,
Yep.
and from the sort of autocratic to the traditional and hierarchical to the more collaborative and transformational. That's, yeah. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very helpful. And I'll say more about it in a second, but let's get some practice in. Let's try to see how this lands, especially with group 1 and group 3. Oh, and group 4 has added some things too. So there's a lot of ways into this part. Okay. So if you're bringing this into an organization, you can have each group take a turn, right? So I've had it so that I do a bit of genetic engineering of the groups. So a group has maybe it's all one kind of area of technical expertise, right? These guys all know about software stuff, right? Or maybe I mix that group up so it's got some senior leadership and some of those technical frontline staff, et cetera, et cetera. So these are choices you have to make in relationship to your purpose when you're bringing this work into your organization or organizations you're helping. And then the sequence, right? Today, because of time, we're not going to do we're not going to do a wise crowds, I don't think. I think we're probably just going to hang out here and ask questions, But today, we're just going to kind of swarm it and see what begins to emerge and talk about it as we go. So I'll have each group pop in there, but you can have it so that each group takes a turn and the other groups have to kind of observe quietly. And the groups talk about why they're placing it where they're placing it, right? Actually, I'm changing my mind right now. I think let's try that. Let's see how that goes so people can get a flavor for that approach in. So let's start with group 1. Group 1, begin to drag your yellow stickies into the space. Everyone else just observe as they do it. And group 1, just talk out loud your reasoning. Like, why are you placing this where you're placing it? And we'll go quickly because we only have 15 minutes or so. So maybe let's spend about 3 minutes per group.
Okay, so I'm part of group 1 and I'll just start. I would do, I would put something like the name, which involves like some creative work. And I don't think that's something everybody needs to consent or everybody needs to have a talk in. So it's just really something people need to tolerate and I think, and maybe some people don't care at all. So, so I would say it's rather here.
Well, I'm seeing Jeremy spot some things and pop them in. Okay,
Sorry,
go
I'm
ahead.
muted. I got that spicy potato right there in the middle. Which one was that? Where do we incorporate? What's our jurisdiction? How do we get set up?
Yeah.
This does not feel like I don't want so many cooks in my kitchen on this choice, I notice.
So
Yeah,
where
I'm wondering why it's not on the other side of the line and advice,
Or
right?
that's because I'm on an iPad and I had to switch back to the call and that kind of dropped.
Got it.
I'm
But I
I'm
love what you said there, right? It makes sense that this is probably one person's role who can get all of the information, seek the advice from the right legal people, and yeah, bring something back to the group, or either makes that decision and explains why they're making that decision.
what's coming up for me is that there's like a sequence that you need with this. And it depends on what the purpose is. So I've just grabbed purpose. If it's, and again, that's that whole spectrum thing, isn't it? It's like, what kind of organization is this? What's it seeking to do in the world? And
Yeah.
if it's seeking transformational change or systems change, then purpose needs to be co-created, co-designed. And in a way, everything else from there follows, really, in terms of where decisions are made. That's, I think purpose is really critical.
Okay, group one, you finish adding. Let's give group three a turn now to also talk out loud about how they're thinking. You bring some things in. Group one, you keep adding things in. We'll start to form a picture quickly here.
Yeah, I'm with group 3. In my experience, oftentimes with a new organization, it's one person with an idea. And so I'm not sure how you square that with this. So maybe a better context is an existing organization with a new direction, a new program. I don't know. I'm having a hard time with that. So like purpose, vision, and values, I would put, if I could carry it, over to one person, to being an autocratic decision, because somebody comes up with it usually,
Right.
unless it's a ad. So yeah, I'm sorry to be
No, that so one thing,
wordsmithing, but
yeah. I think one thing that you're getting at is if it's an organization that already exists, it might be the case that it's already a reserved decision right that the founders have, because they kind of defined the thing and invited folks in.
right.
And I think what Rachel was saying is, so if we take the lens to this, that we're forming this collectively from the unlit candles, then that would be something that could live in that space of consent, or like it's participatorily created, whatever that purpose is, right? So are you okay if I bring it up to there, but then I add a sticky that says if? Yeah, I'll do that. And so others in the group, go ahead. Stick some.
Eva can't speak, so she put it in the chat, and she can speak.
Oh,
She just is in a noisy place.
lovely.
So
Can you
she
speak
thinks
for
the
her, Ruth?
revenue model should be up in the whole team to consent on.
Yeah, and I
Love it.
clarify this as like fees or dues, or like, do we have to pay to participate, or where does our money come from? Is it grants, or yeah.
Right, the business model, really, yeah.
Can I ask something? Hi, Madhuri here. I'm just curious, based on personal experience. Most of the times, the culture that I've been part of in terms of organization, being an early founding member of certain programs and organizations, what I've experienced is that people do embrace consent-based decision-making processes. However, when things get complex, uh, and yeah, say for example, people assume that, okay, hey, you know what, I wish to be part of these working circles. Okay, there's a mutual understanding of who wants to do what and willing to take accountability for. So after that, when there are certain ongoing decisions that have to happen on a daily or a weekly basis, um, I've had experience where people say, you know what, can I not participate in all the decisions? Can I just keep it to the circle that I'm working for? Um, so I'm I'm not really sure if all the time all of them involved or leading certain circles are really willing to be part of every decision that's being made in the organization.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just want, one or two to make the decisions, and as Susan mentioned, I think as far as we clearly mention in the weekly discussions or weekly meetings that these are the decisions that we're making and why we're making it and how it aligns to the larger goals and the vision of the organization, I think most of them seem to be fine. So is this a common observation, or is this just with the bunch of people that I've worked with so far?
I think it's definitely common,
It
Madhvi.
is so
I
common.
think that and there's so many things that go into that, right? It's you might come in with a good intention of wanting to participate in everything, but life happens, right? You
Mm,
it could be any number of things that can increase or decrease your energy, or your
mm,
optimism to want to be able to participate. And I think that building, in my experience, like developmental edge of like almost restraining my FOMO and my own
mm,
self-importance of having to have a say in everything,
mm,
has been something that's like eventually over time released me into being able to, for example, trust Stefan that right, the working group that he's part of that I'm deciding I want to participate in, but I can't, will make decisions that are within my scope of tolerance. But
mm,
it does take time, and you know tools like this do not drive culture, right? The
mm,
cultural ways of being in groups is manifest in and between the relationships in the group.
Yeah.
But things like this can help us to see or conceptually like understand the meaning of
mm,
it, right? But just like so many of these things, we often don't take the time to even think about this, right? Like if we're honest, those of us here in this call, like how much time do we actually spend thinking about decision making? Um,
mm,
because we love to always come back to that David Graeber quote, which is, the ultimate hidden truth of the world is that it's something we create. Well, decision making is something we create. Like we've inherited all of these ways of thinking about organizing and making decisions that may have served us in the past, may not anymore, but shoot, we can't just dive in and expect things to be different. Anyway, that's my little soapbox.
yeah,
Ava.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I'm moving a little bit right now. I would say I'm trying to put this in real life's context. I'm working with a grassroots group that is a 17-member board, and they're making decisions on this nightly market, this nightly, and it's all vendor space, right? So no one's getting paid. There are 3 consultants who have limited hours, and these 3 consultants are really trying to have the 17 board members make the decisions. And what I have found is that one, this group of vendors have never been asked or given the time to make these decisions. So this is, you have to like ground them there then. And then do you want to take the time, and do you have the time, and do you know how to facilitate these conversations to say like these are different ways? And I think that's been important. these three consultants are now in this storming of a team where they thought they were in agreement in certain aspects, such as who is in control, going back to like your racy work or mocha, right? Like who oversees what? And they didn't talk about this larger context first of like, where do we need to make decisions together and where do are we're okay letting go and moving forward? Where's our fist of five, right? Where's our like organizing rules? Um, so I'm trying to think about like, how do I bring this into them to be like, let's just make the thinking visible. Where do you all think we should have done this and like had
So
sorry,
yeah, yeah.
correct.
No, that is so great. I mean, these last two are so great. So a lot of times when I've used this with groups is we spend most of the time hanging out here in the all space after everyone's taken turns populating. We don't have time to do that today, and that's okay because I think you're all getting the flavor now for the most part. I'm hoping people are getting the flavor for how you can design this and hold this. But I like to use my role as a third party if I'm not in that system. So if I'm not sure if you're in that system or if you would have to work with the consultants on this part, but you use that outsider role to kind of ask the dumb questions like, huh, what if we move this over here? You know, and see how the group is reacting to that, and then start a conversation around certain things where like there's probably maybe for this thing here there isn't a really strong need to involve everyone's bandwidth and attention because that's what we get to in consent. It's a bandwidth and attention heavy space, and so we need to kind of guard that and protect that. But a lot of organizations, if you're familiar with spiral dynamics ideas, they operate in the green meme, which means, oh, we want to include everyone. Everyone's part of all the decisions we make. It's always an everyone thing. But we actually have to embrace a bit more dynamic hierarchy, or else we burn ourselves out with having to kind of participate in so many working groups, having to, talk about so many different proposals in the full system space. So that's a big part of this activity too, is that you can use it to kind of just challenge people's assumptions and move them more in the direction of, advice process, right? Like, yeah, sure, consent might ultimately be how we decide on the revenue model for our unlit candles thing, but we might want to identify like one or two people who first go away and really think on it, and really craft a proposal as if they were going to just be making the decision themselves. And we can make those choices together as a group using the board. I like to think of it as a triangulation tool. You take the two known things. One known thing is the work that needs to be done, right? And then the other known thing is the board itself as it's shaping up. And you're using those two known positions to triangulate an unknown position, which is how we're gonna decide in the future about these things, what kind of priorities we're gonna make around these things. Um, if that makes any sense. Yeah. How are folks
Interesting.
doing? We only have 5 minutes left. I can't believe it. So much to get to in this. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
We were
Where
very, very optimistic, Steph.
I was like, we're gonna do it. People are gonna get a taste. I hope you have gotten a taste. I hope you have gotten a taste of how this works. But where do we go now, Susan? We gotta
Well,
check.
yeah, I think let's check out. And then I know that Anna would like to speak to what's next. You want to offer a checkout question in chat, Steph? What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here, and I'm gonna pick up. I'm thinking something like uh one from our list here. What do you feel is ending or beginning for you right now? Do it in Chatterfall just like last time. And then we'll hear some words from Anna. About 10 more seconds. If you're done, let's see your hands massaging the screen. Okay, okay. Da ba da ba da. Okay, go. Mm, yes. Love it.
Thank you for being here. Anna, over to you.
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Susan. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you for such a practical, hands-on creation of a decision-making process right here in the room. And thank you to all of you also for the juicy chat. I think each of us will be going back to and looking at. If you've enjoyed this session, then I imagine you've also enjoyed other sessions in the Networks Festival. And I wanted to remind us that the whole festival happens on the gift economy. So if you enjoy this and enjoy other sessions, please consider donating both for the hosts who are hosting the sessions, but also the whole big coordinating team across Veto Network and Greater Than. As for today's session, we have a couple of really personal invitations, I would say. One straight away is connect with Stefan and Susan. You've got their email addresses here, but you can also find them on LinkedIn, make a connection, reach out, and they've got this beautiful direct proposal for first two organizations that will contact them will receive a 90-minute coaching advisory to support your decision-making process. And I would probably say that this can be both yourself or maybe somebody within your team or within your greater network that could really use this. This would be a great gift to ripple out further. So please get in touch with them. The other thing is that how to continue the journey beyond this session. We've mentioned two sessions that directly tie to the topic. One is the generative decision making, which is happening on the 16th of June. Please do join that. And then also Stefan and Susan are going to be also leading another session next week on leading through complexity. So particularly around that topic, but also this time zone, if it works for you, check out and be with us then. And after the festival or beyond the festival, the way to connect with us and Greater Than, the way to continue this journey is to sign up to our weekender. It is a weekly musings, provocations that Susan is one of the authors of, and it is the place where you will receive the latest insights of what's going on within Greater Than, and that is also where you'll hear about the summer school deep dive, which we'll be announcing there soon. And and just great news, great offers, and all that is happening within this realm. And so love being here with you. Thank you so much and look forward to connecting soon.
Thank you so much, Anna. And I'm also happy to stick around for a hazy end if people have more questions and want to continue to nerd out. I have time. And for everyone else who needs to go off and do other things, good luck. Good luck, my fellow unlit candles. Continue sharing the flame on into the dark night of authoritarianism. take it down, you know? And yeah, please reach out to us, because these are the sorts of practices and methods that begin to help shift mindsets and shift practices. And the more we can get practiced in them, however awkward they feel in the beginning to learn them, the more generative organizations and communities we create. So yeah, any final words from you, Susan, on the revolution?
No, yeah, just the revolution. Like, I have to admit, what was coming up from my mind, you know me too well, Steph, is like immediately going to see if I can buy the URL, the unlit candles. Because who knows, it might be a thing. And I think, yeah, these core practices are so often so ignored because they are the water we swim in. They are our inheritance. And taking the time and energy to get explicit and clear with yourself and with the groups that you're supporting is absolutely essential. And it's hard and it's overwhelming, but you know, if we, many hands make light work.
Yeah. One more thing on that, like, we learned about something new today for some of you. As I always tell groups, it's like, great, cool. Now, the other side of that is all of the unlearning too. So the work in this is, it's not all, it's like, like, I don't get this, I don't understand this, or I do get it, but I'm still bringing this lens to it. There's so much in the unlearning that this entails too. So do it within capacity would be my advice. Always within capacity, because it's, as we saw today, I was like, oh, maybe we can just have a taste, but we needed to spend way more time to really help you all see it. So it's a slow process, but it does help shift cultures and help people move along.
Just keep finding the others. We're here. Yeah.
And I'm here in particular for longer than now. So if you want to stick around, go for it. And I'm seeing everyone sticking around. So that's great.
Thank